Claudia Woods. I identify as a Lebanese American woman. I am queer and I sometimes use the label lesbian. I also identify as a disabled hearing impaired person.
My name is Beatrice DeChico, and I am a transgender woman. I am also a polyamorous lesbian.
My name is Mike Dolzer. I'm a 25-year-old queer man who lives in New York, New York.
My name is Janine Rowland. I am 25, female identified. I use she, her, and they, them pronouns. And I am a kink-friendly lesbian. I believe that romantic and sexual identities can be separate. For a romantic identity, I'm a lesbian. I don't really have a label for a sexual identity yet.
My name is Nephalie, and I'm a trans lesbian. I am 24 years old and began hormone replacement therapy 2 years ago.
My name is Derek Knight, and I am a gay transgender man.
My name is Luna. I am a transgender woman. Assistant professor of psychology and high school AP psychology teacher.
Something that makes me proud of my identity is the fact that as a young person growing up, in the South, there's so much of your identity that you have to hide, whether that be consciously or unconsciously. Having to figure out and sort of strip away which pieces of you are actually real is a very tough and draining process.
Honestly, nothing makes me proud about being gay or trans. I'm not ashamed of it, but it's a part of me, like my hair or eye color. I'm not proud of it because I didn't really do anything to make it happen.
Being honest with myself about my gender identity, my sexual orientation, and all that has made me more comfortable and more able to understand myself and just be able to exist better in this world. I'm also extremely proud of both of my girlfriends. I love being with them and doing everything that I can to support them.
It took me 21 years to be proud of my identity. I first thought I was bisexual, and I quickly realized that that's not the case. I actually am not in any way attracted to men, so I exclusively date women or gender non-conforming people.
I was confused for a very long time, and I wondered if things were okay, and then I think I also fell into that guilt trap of, oh, well, I feel bad that I'm this way.
You have to really get to know yourself at a fairly young age, and I don't think that people who don't share that identity really have to go through that.
I'm proud to be trans because of how it's helped me grow as a person. It's really allowed me to get to know myself better, to be more true and honest to myself.
When I was younger, I had a lot of trouble because I thought passing as cis was everything. I didn't transition for so long because I felt I would never pass. I thought that since I didn't know exactly what I wanted since I was a child, and since I hadn't started hormones in my teens, that I would never be seen as a woman. I'm proud that I was able to let go of these insecurities and express my real self.
It's brought me in touch with so many wonderful people. It's been amazing.
It just gives perspective, and it helps me be a better and more empathetic person, I think.
Since coming out and transitioning, I have actually gained a lot more nuanced understanding of gender and sexuality than I would have otherwise. My experience as a gay trans man has been far more supportive than I anticipated. I'm lucky to be surrounded by a lot of people who care about me, but that isn't true for all of us.
I first realized that I was transgender when I was about 14 years old. I kind of thought that you had to transition as soon as possible, as young as you could, that you would never be happy if you transitioned as an adult. And at a certain point, I ended up being pressured to go back, and through a lot of my later teenage years was just telling myself, well, even if I am actually trans, it's not worth transitioning. It's too late. At a certain point, I realized that's not the case. It's never too late to transition. It's never too late to become who you are.
I want to say that I finally felt proud when I realized that acceptance of myself is not dependent on other people accepting me. I thought for the longest time that in order to really be myself and love myself and explore my identity, I had to have my parents' approval and acceptance. I didn't even really come out to a lot of my family. It was just sort of like there. It was definitely a source of discomfort for a while. There's still just kind of a sense of like, oh, family, like traditional family means man and woman, and you have children, and the mom stays home.
I was expecting to be more lonely, or for friends to unexpectedly cut me off. Most of the loneliness I was already experiencing due to depressive self-isolation. I've only made more friends since then, who see me as a woman.
I grew up in Charlottesville, Virginia. You know, it's the South. There's a lot of things that, you know, I never really was sure I'd be able to do. I remember when I was really young, obviously, same-sex marriage wasn't even legal. Knowing that that's in the cards now, and living in a place sort of as accepting as Manhattan means that there's so many more ways I get to explore my identity, feel my identity. I mean, oh my God, I'm not the only gay person in every room now.
It's allowed me to ultimately improve my life in ways that I think were possible.
I was also worried that the emotional impact of hormone replacement therapy would be overwhelming and make it hard to manage my life. But since it helped my depression, it actually made it easier to do the things that I wanted to do. Something special in my life is my girlfriend, Amber. We first met through an online magazine I published where she wrote an article about growing up on the internet. We're working towards finally moving in together someday.
I also realized, I deserve happiness, I deserve love, I deserve the right to get married and have a family just like anybody does.
So are there stereotypes about my identity? Duh.
But I really don't like the stereotype of lesbians hate men. Honestly, some of these men out here be looking really beautiful. When I look at a nice, pretty woman, I get strange butterflies, and that's how I knew. I don't hate men, though.
A lot of people feel that transgender people just one day suddenly decided, hey, I want to be a man, a woman, whatever gender they've decided. I never felt comfortable being a man, and when I learned what being transgender was, it just clicked in my brain that yes, that perfectly encompasses all the things I've been feeling all these years. I didn't come out and become a woman or anything. I always felt like one. I was just never able to put words to it before.
A stereotype I would like to address is that all transgender men were sexually abused as children. That isn't true for most of us, and even if someone was sexually abused, that doesn't delegitimize their transition in any way.
Some stereotypes about trans women are that we're only interested in men. This is not true at all. It is often believed that trans lesbians only date other trans lesbians because cis lesbians aren't interested in them. Actually, I have to turn down cis women who love women a lot of the time because I have a girlfriend.
I'm proud to be Lebanese. I'm half Lebanese on my mother's side. I'm also Egyptian. Her father is from Egypt. And I felt really confused growing up by this, being a mixed person. There are so many misconceptions about being Middle Eastern. We're automatically associated with terrorists. We're automatically associated with violence. We're really quite a diverse group of people. We don't look one way. In terms of being a lesbian, we're completely objectified. Something that is for men, that's consumed by men, like by the male gaze. I'm a whole person. I'm a human being.
The one thing I'd like to address about being trans is that we're not all perverts and pedophiles. We're not going to go and barge into the bathroom. I wish that stereotype could be done away with.
Another common stereotype with trans women is that we're often aggressive as a product of male socialization. This stereotype, as well as dysphoria around voice, actually makes trans women the most soft-spoken people in the room. People tend to transition later because they lack the resources to when they're young. They're often stuck in abusive home situations or poverty, but it is very common around early to mid-20s when we're first able to leave our parents. Also, a small one is that estrogen changes our voices. It actually doesn't. Only testosterone changes your voice dramatically. Every trans woman with a beautiful voice worked hard to get it there.
I identify as queer. What I mean by that, at least speaking for myself, is I fall somewhere between homosexual and bisexual. I am a little more toward the homosexual side. I don't want to erase the parts of me that do feel attraction towards those who are female presenting, who identify as female. It doesn't mean I'm confused. It doesn't mean that I'm in a phase. It just means that sexuality is a spectrum, surprise, and here's where I fall on it.
I'm hearing impaired. I wear hearing aids. I went to speech therapy growing up. I have a unique experience as a student in my advocacy work for sexual violence issues. I think I have a unique experience. It was something we didn't talk about, kind of like being queer. It was just sort of something that, you know, you fix it and you move on. Anytime I didn't hear something or maybe I misunderstood someone, I was always like the subject of ridicule and criticism. Disabled people really are not getting the attention, the advocacy, the support that they need.
I spent a long time thinking that I would have to hide forever, or that I would never get to be really fulfilled. If I could talk to a younger version of myself about my identity, I would just say that it's okay that you're not cookie cutter. It's okay that you're different. You might be the only person you know who's like this, but you're not alone. There are other people like you. There are other people who get it.
If I could talk to my younger self, I would tell him to stick to his guns, and to not be shoved back into the closet but for his interests and hobbies.
I would tell my younger self that they aren't going through a phase or merely have a preference, and that transition would be better for their anxiety and depression than anything else has.
Free fall. Explore what you like. Know what you want. It's okay.
Be happy. Look within. Is what you're doing, is that making you happy? And if it isn't, then stop. Accepting yourself doesn't have to be that difficult if you just take a moment and remember that really only you are the one who understands yourself.
If I could talk to a younger version of myself about being trans, I would tell myself to stop lying to myself, to try to transition sooner. So, honestly, I've been a lot happier since beginning this process.
Don't be ashamed of these feelings that you're having. They're not wrong. They're not bad. There are people in your life who will love you and care about you no matter what.
Don't see this as something to hide away or be ashamed of.
I think in terms of my hearing impaired disability, to be assertive, to be confident, there's nothing wrong with asking people to repeat themselves. It's not a reflection of how hard you work, how talented you are, how skilled you are.
You get to be different, but in a powerful, fierce, beautiful way.
It's allowed me to be more open with myself, more open with others.
It's nice to have people in my life who I know love me, care about me, and support me, and I feel the same way for them.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. It doesn't matter how they think I look. It doesn't matter what religion they think I am. It only matters what I think of myself. And if I know in my heart who I am, and I feel secure in who I am, then that's enough. That's enough for me.
Community members of the LGBTQ plus community can support each other in so many ways.
The LGBT community can support trans men by speaking out against transphobia within the gay community. And trans men can support each other by having compassion for each other, particularly for young, questioning, and stealth trans men.
Chosen family is a very big part of queer culture. I mean, even ball culture, which is a subculture in the LGBTQ plus community, it was primarily for Black and Latinx people. That was a sort of place where they could create their own families when they were literally disowned by their own biological family.
I think that we as a community can support each other by protecting each other and simply being there for each other on an emotional level. Just be there to talk.
Just by being out, being visible, being open. To your comfort level, do what you can to be seen, because that increases the surrounding community around you to also be out and open and to feel comfortable being out and open.
We should also support those of us who are homeless, disabled, and low income.
Actively going and helping people who need it, donating to people who are struggling to be able to pay for surgery, healthcare, housing, especially for queer people of color who struggle with racism.
So many voices don't get heard that need to be. If I wasn't, slightly marginalized by my identity, I wouldn't really realize that. I wouldn't feel that. I think we need to make sure that we give each other platforms and voices to speak. We need to make sure that we aren't erasing parts of the identity that aren't just, some of the more well-known identities. There's so many letters in the acronym, and that's because of a very beautiful reason. There's such a rainbow of people included, no pun intended.
Finding other hearing impaired people, other disabled people, people who experience their bodies literally differently than others has been really enlightening. I never felt like I fully and completely belonged in the Lebanese community because of my queer identity and because I'm also a mixed person. So in college, I found a girl named Alex, and hi Alex, is also Lebanese and she's also gay, and we've connected a lot through our identities, our shared experiences. Aligning myself more and more with people of color has been really beautiful for me. It made me rediscover the meaning of culture, ethnicity, race.
We all have an understanding of what we're all going through in a way that others cannot.
Even just educating ourselves on issues related to sexualities that don't match ours, to gender identities we may not understand, and to the issues surrounding different races. We owe so much of what we have, especially to queer POC.
As community members, we can and should materially support the Black and brown people in our community. The LGBT community is often seen as white because many of its representatives in popular culture have been white.
Just because you don't have power in some way, just because you're oppressed in some way, it doesn't give you the right to then go out in the world and oppress someone else. It doesn't take away the privileges that you do have. People of color and the queer community are constantly experiencing racism. Trans people are constantly experiencing transphobia. And I think the first step to that is empathy, is listening to the people who are experiencing that pain.
As for those outside of the community, they can support us via psychoeducation, which is educating themselves on trans issues, trans rights, in order to help contend with stereotypes and violence towards LGBT and transgender individuals in general.
Pay attention and listen to what queer people say. Support queer artists, support queer politicians, do anything you can to listen, make sure that you stay informed.
It's great if you want to, ask questions, but don't necessarily expect us to always be in the mood to answer them. There's a certain stamina needed when you have any sort of diverse identity. Sometimes you're just trying to do your work or eat your sandwich. You don't have time to explain everything.
There are a lot of allies out there who just kind of assume that they know what's going on with the trans community, and sometimes they end up supporting things that are harmful.
We often face hiring discrimination, for instance, and cis heterosexuals need to confront the discrimination against LGBT people that they can see every day. It's important to research about the groups out there and find out what their policies are regarding queer people.
Non-trans masculine people and people outside the LGBT community can best support trans men by speaking out against transphobia when they see it, and by respecting our privacy.
Listen to us. Listen to our stories. Be open and accepting all the time, and be willing to defend that in front of other people. Show your allyship. Display that and be proud.
If they are telling you that they or someone they know experienced bigotry, believe them.
We help amplify our voices. It's great if you want to stand in solidarity, but when it comes to who needs to be heard right then, it's us. Don't ever try to talk for us.
Those outside of the community should also not broadcast when their friends are LGBT, except when they are explicitly asked to.
Even if you're 99% sure that someone is trans, Don't put them on the spot by asking about their pronouns or transition status in public. It's really othering, and frankly, most of us just want to live our lives in peace.
We are human, and behind the identity is a person who is just as complex as everyone else.
It's been a lot of ups and downs, but it's been worth it so far.
It's hard to believe that at one point I thought I would never be able to do this.
You know, I surround myself with so many people who wholeheartedly support me, who wholeheartedly understand me, who love me and accept me, and I think that's really filled my heart up so much.
Support us, year round. Pride is a great, beautiful month, but that doesn't mean the issues facing the community end once July starts.